Microtrends will be talking about, well, tell them what you're going to be talking about.
Hi, I'm David Perry from Trend Micro, and I'm going to be talking about security risks in college students online. I was, am I there? There I am. Okay, and here I am. I recently have been speaking at a lot of colleges. I did a college tour of Brazil and spoke at a lot of Brazilian colleges to people who were majoring in computer science and in computer security. And I opened up my speech by saying that I started college in 1974, and I went to a very progressive California school. They had a computer, one computer, for 25,000 students. And that at the time that I was in college, the first computer viruses in the wild were still 15 and 16 years away. And I encouraged them to bear in mind that the path of their careers may come up and be on something that hasn't even been invented yet. And because there's a lot of pressure on college students to make up their minds about their career right now. And they're going to be adults in a world that does not yet exist. Reminded them of that. Now, it's funny, I was asked to do this, to talk about specific threat profiles. I talk about computer viruses and threats and Trojans all over the world, all the time. And the first thought was to go out and look up specific threats to college students. And there's some. There's some spam. There's some special phishing attacks that claim to be scholarship programs. But to tell you the truth, this represents only a tiny fraction of the threat that faces college students. What's more important is the sociology of it, is what point are they at in their lives, and how does that represent a security threat to their computing experience. So here, if you're as old as I am, you will recognize the Smokey the Bear air triangle for fire. Do you all remember this? Any Boy Scouts out there? Right, so you have air, heat, and fuel makes a fire. Well, I adapted this to cybercrime. To make a cybercrime, you need a vulnerability, which is to say there has to be a weakness in the operating system or applications that you use that makes an exposure, that opens a door for cybercrime. There has to be an exploit, which is when someone writes code that takes advantage of that vulnerability, and there has to be the opportunity to make money. See, I put cybercrime down there. I should have put opportunity. So you can see this is the last-minute presentation assembly. Okay, so that's what makes up a cybercrime. You have vulnerability, you have exploit, you have opportunity to make money. Well, recently we've gone beyond making money. Originally, and this is the problem with this, back in the day of Michelangelo and Melissa, we were seeing demonstration malware that was all about bragging rights for a hacker who wanted us to know how cool he was. Now we see professional malware, and it's completely invisible. And I'll repeat that several times. It does not have any symptom. So time after time after time, when I talk to students about security, they go, well, I'm not running any security on my computer, and I have no problem with it. Because they expect that if there was a problem, that it would create visible symptoms that they could see. Their computer would crash. It would slow down. There would be an animated octopus on the screen going, blah, ha, ha. That's the way it happens in the movies. But in reality, it's not. Well, I'm here to tell you that recently, if you're paying attention to the news, we have malware that goes beyond profit. We just had Stuxnet that was about attacking the production of nuclear generators in Iran. And a lot of people go, good, right on for that. But realize our critical infrastructure is just as vulnerable to that kind of attack on SCADA systems. We are extremely vulnerable to that. And we have more vulnerable sites than any other nation in the world in that regard. Okay, and the other thing I would ask you to look at is the anonymous WikiLeaks denial of service attack, okay? These are not done for profit. This is what I would call hacktivism. This is people taking up the internet in purposes. Okay, as educators, look out for this one, okay? Because the prime suspect of who's going to want to do hacktivism are some of your students, okay? And I don't know how to I don't know how to profile them. We'll get to that in the distant future, right? But right now, the main thing we're looking at is cybercrime. Cybercrime is huge. The FBI assures us it's hundreds of billions of dollars each day. And for comparison, I was the very first technician hired at Peter Norton for the Norton antivirus in 1990. At that time, we were finding between 3 and 5 new viruses a month. I called Trends Labs in Manila this morning. Yesterday, we discovered 86,000 new unique pieces of malware. Unique new pieces of malware. And that's 24/7. That's the way it goes. 80, 90,000 a day. And that's up from 50,000 at the beginning of the year. The bestiary, the entire collection of malware, used to be a couple of thousand pieces. Now it's well over 90 million pieces of malware. So this leaves us in a world where, yes, I could tell you about a money mule program that was targeted at college students, but it's a drop in the bucket. These things go in and out of existence in minutes in order to evade detection and prosecution as criminal activity. So here are some threats that college students have in common. College students are almost entirely mobile computing. My wife is in nursing school right now at Cal State Fullerton, and I just gave her a new Lenovo netbook for Christmas because someone stole her other netbook 3 months earlier. And this is actually one of the main threats involving mobile computing, is that the laptops and the netbooks and the notebooks get stolen. I recently appeared on television in Southern California I live in Huntington Beach, with the Huntington Beach Police Department. They took me to an evidence room where they had hundreds of stolen and recovered laptops that someone was going to the resort hotels at the edge of the beach and breaking into room after room and stealing all the notebooks to take the identity information off of them and throw the notebooks away. They didn't want the notebooks. They just wanted the identity. The identity is worth money. You can fence it fast, and no one will catch it with you. The notebook itself is a liability for a criminal. That's the world we live in, okay? So that's a threat of mobile computing. There's some other threats in mobile computing. You're using ad hoc networks. You're using unfamiliar and unsecure networks, and you realize that today's cybercrime does not break into the session. So no matter how well you control your network, your student is coming in with an infection and a keylogger they picked up at a Starbucks or at their home or at the dormitory or whatever, right? So most of this cybercrime theft, the identity theft, the credit card theft, happens at the point of the client. And so that is where the break is. The breach is not in your server, although you really need to protect your servers. And so you have these students, they're away from home for the first time, many of them. They have their first credit cards, many of them, and they have that sense of invulnerability that comes with being 19 and 20 years old. And that's a wonderful thing. Again, I get this, I don't have any problems, I don't see anything going on. So online school bookstores, I've noticed you can Kindle your textbooks in many cases. Social networking, everybody. Who here is on Facebook? Show of hands. See, everybody's on Facebook. I think they're going to hit 300 million people soon. That's worldwide, but they're well above 500 million?
550.
I took a vacation, what do I know? 2 days ago? Right. Really? 550 million? That's a lot of Facebook people. I was going to say that's a lot of Farmville, right? Okay, there's a problem with social networking in that the nature of their business, the product is not the social networking. You're not paying for the social networking. You're not the customer. You, and me, because I'm on it for sure, you're the product. And they're delivering your eyes to advertisers, but what's more important, they are collecting personal information and dossiers about you to sell to market research firms. That's the business of Facebook. Anyone here from Facebook? Yes, they are taking what you and you notice if you on your Facebook account you get those things that come up and what's the name of your first pet? Tell us everything that happened to you in high school. This is useful information to a cyber criminal. They can find out your challenge questions. They can look at you here's a picture of my grandfather, Dr. Jones. If your name is Smith, I now know your mother's maiden name. Here's my dog Fluffy. That might be your password. So be careful with that. I lecture people about that all the time, but I look at Facebook pages, and it's a heck of a dossier, and the cyber criminals actually have tools that let them pick up LinkedIn and Facebook and MySpace and sweep through these things and combine them into a dossier to get bigger information picture about the person, and then that's a